What's up, Facebook? All right, so I'm making a video of why I walked away from the Republican Party. So I was raised Republican, so that's initially where my political affiliation came from. I was raised Republican. My mom, grandma, most of my aunts, they were all Republicans. So my whole life, all I knew was like Republicans are good and Democrats are bad. So that was like the foundation. And my journey to where this started to change actually started with like oddly enough, it wasn't really political. It was in my early teens, I got like really sucked into like a lot of YouTube conspiracy theories, and I started to do a lot of research on like conspiracy theories. There was like some conspiracy theories that you could 100% without a doubt prove actually happened, whether it's through like declassified information or just stuff like our government actually did, things that are common knowledge or not. There's certain conspiracy theories that you can prove are 100% fact. It was like the crazy stuff that was kind of like, Hillary Clinton is a reptilian, or like birds don't exist, all the birds are dead, and the current birds are just like robots to spy on us, and like just like basically like super crazy conspiracy theories. So that established in me like a distrust towards the government, like regardless of political affiliation, and like understanding that like our government is far from perfect, and we have a lot of blood on our hands. That started it. And then like in my early 20s, I would definitely say I was a Republican. One thing that happened was I started to think to myself, how is it the Republicans are always right and the Democrats are always wrong? Everything the Republicans do is good, and everything the other side, what they do, is bad. And then if I talk to a Democrat or a liberal, they thought the exact same way. 100% of their party is good, and 100% of my party, or the Republican Party, was bad. So to me, I started to think like, how is that possible? So I would start to question my own reasoning and thinking, and then that led into like I started to notice that like I noticed it on the other side first, but I started to notice that my responses and stances were redundant, hypocritical, and like predictable, which I already noticed on the left, and I still believe that's true to this day. But I didn't notice it about myself because I was biased. So then I started to realize that it's the same thing on my side. So the second thing was I started to do research in like how similar the parties actually were. So there are obviously differences. I know there's differences between the political parties, but like I would say that they use a certain type of rhetoric, and then they get in the office, and a lot of what they do policy-wise, bill-wise, are just things that are done within the executive branch are very similar when it comes to things on war, things on our health insurance. For example, Bush's, I think it's called Medicare Part D, it's very similar to Obamacare. So basically, it's like they're doing the same things, but one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, and that's the difference. Thing I would say is the corruption of the Republican Party, and I'm not talking about Republicans like civilians, I'm talking about people in the government. I knew a lot about corruption within the Democratic Party, historical or current. I knew a lot of that information, and I could spout out a lot of that, but I couldn't do the same for my own party. So then I started doing research into the corruption of the Republican Party. Yeah, it would come from mainly left-leaning websites, but there's certain things you can fact check, and maybe you can find out maybe they over-exaggerated on something. But at the same time, I don't care if it's a liberal outsource. If they're giving information that's accurate, there's ways to check and see if it's accurate. So like I started to get exposed to within the government the corruption of the Republican Party. The third thing is fear mongering. And both sides 100% are guilty of this. But like I said, I was only aware of it on the other side. So the entire time, this is an example, the entire time that Obama was in office, all the Republicans around me are like, Obama's going to take our guns away. And then I would hear Obama on the news talking about like putting restrictions on guns, but not taking them away. And I'd be like, he's a liar. And so I wouldn't even like give him a chance. I'd be like, oh, he's a liar. He wants to take away our guns. And under Obama, there are things that he tried to initiate. And I think in 2015, he initiated like getting stricter background checks. I don't know if that actually went through or not. I honestly am not educated on it. I just know that it happened. But it did not make guns more difficult to access. And under Obama, because people were so afraid, gun sales actually skyrocketed. So Obama was like good for the gun business because they could fake this narrative that he's coming for your guns, but he actually wasn't. And then on the other side, I wouldn't say Trump is anti-Second Amendment, but he outlawed bump stocks, which is more, he enforced more gun control than Obama did. But if you talk to a conservative, they'll be like, Obama was anti-Second Amendment and Trump is pro-Second Amendment, but he enforced more gun control laws than potentially that Obama did. I mean, don't quote me on that. I don't have like the list or comparison, but I know Obama didn't outlaw bump stocks. Trump did. So that's one, and they do it in other areas where they say like, if you elect this person, you know, we're going to become a socialist country or a communist country, which isn't 100% true. Most Democrats that I meet are not communists or socialists, but it's the same on the flip side. Like far left people, they'll say that if you're right leaning, that you flirt with Nazism and white supremacy. But I will say, now the extremists of these parties, this is true. The extremists of the right, they do flirt with white supremacy, and the extremists of the left, they do flirt with communism, which are both very evil ideologies, which I don't understand why each side would flirt with these. Excuse me. But yeah, it's not true. Like if a Democrat gets in office, that doesn't mean overnight we're going to become a socialist country. I mean, like organizations like Black Lives Matter, not the movement, the organization, they're communists. They're like neo-Marxists, and they spread ideologies of communism. But that doesn't mean that if a Democrat president gets in, that we're going to become a communist country. After I left the Republican Party, several times I've been called a Nazi from like liberal people just because I don't think how they think. So it's a fear-mongering tactic to be like, if you're not on this side, you're a Nazi, or if you're not on this side, you're a communist, which isn't necessarily true in most cases, Republican or Democrat. And like I said, you can point this out on both sides. There's a guy named Richard Grenell, I think his name is, but he's like the first openly gay person that was ever appointed to like the cabinet. And he was appointed by Republicans, and he is starting like an initiative like globally to end like the criminalization of homosexuality. Because I mean, most of our allies, it's already like decriminalized, but like in a lot of Muslim countries, you can get killed for being gay. And this initiative, and this initiative is being like spearheaded by Democrats and Republicans, but the Republican Party is the one who put him as the first openly gay person in the like American government cabinet. But if you talk to a liberal, they'll be like, if you get a conservative, and they're gonna like, they want to hang all the gays and take away all your rights. And that's probably not even necessarily true, but it's a fear-mongering tactic to be like, get on this side, because that side's homophobic. So the third thing is fear-mongering. I saw it in a lot of ways and things that were conveyed to me, the things that never actually came true. The fourth thing is freedom of speech. In a lot of ways, the left is very anti-freedom of speech. They want to make like hate speech a legal thing, which would manipulate the First Amendment. And I mean, I don't know who would be in charge of considering what is and isn't hate speech, but that's a day that I really hope never has to come. And historically, the Republicans have been the party of like censorship and trying to like, shut up artists, musicians, comedians, and now that's definitely the liberal side. Like cancel culture, people trying to shut down comedians like Joe Rogan, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, all those people. These are all liberals. But on the flip side, it's something that I see within the Republican Party too, and not just a few people, but like at large, and even to the president. When he says that people can't kneel during the national anthem, that is an attack on the First Amendment, on freedom of speech. When he said that people should get fined or put in prison for burning a flag, in order to do that, you need to manipulate the First Amendment, which is something that like Republicans are supposed to hold sacred. And would I go out and personally burn a flag? No, but I'm happy that I live in a government that allows me to criticize them publicly. And if someone has a different way of doing that, I don't believe it's our right to like jail them or like say we're pro First Amendment, except for in this case when it benefits our political party, because that's exactly what the left does. And then when the right doesn't and you point it out, they don't want to admit it. And I see tons of Republicans sharing things like, Trump said this and I agree with it, people should get fined and yada yada, but what you don't understand is that would change the First Amendment. And as a socially conservative person myself, I don't think that you should ever censor someone's speech or freedom of expression unless if they're hurting somebody else. I mean, now if some Antifa idiot is burning a flag on, public property and it's not their flag, or a place they're not supposed to start a fire, then yeah, prosecute them for that, but not because of what they're doing. Like if it's their flag and they're somewhere where they can burn a flag, that should be 100% legal, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel. Because we're not North Korea. We don't force people to pledge their allegiance or nationalism. And the absolute last thing or last reason I left the Republican Party actually started under Obama and was one of the biggest reasons why I disliked Obama. The Patriot Act was put into place, and under that there were programs such as Mystic, X-Keyscore, Muscular, Heartbeat, all these different programs that basically enabled the U.S. government to spy on us and collect mass data and information on us, anywhere from emails we sent out, call logs of phone calls that we made, text messages, social media interactions, even down to like your location of like where you go, like if your location of your phone is turned on. And all this stuff is stored in a government database under the CIA and the NSA. And all of this was exposed under Obama's presidency by a whistleblower named Edward Snowden. When this first happened, Obama did a lot to discredit Edward Snowden and said he is just a 29-year-old hacker. But to the contrary, he was an NSA and CIA government contractor, and he had more like security clearance than most people in like the intelligence community could ever even dream of. Like he had worked his way so high up within the government and basically got exposed to all these corruptions and then went and exposed it. And Obama, when he was running, I'm pretty sure Edward Snowden voted for Obama because he said that this was already weighing on him under Bush, and Obama basically said that he's going to try to regulate like mass surveillance and protect whistleblowers. But when he got in the office, he actually used the Espionage Act to prosecute more leakers and whistleblowers than any president in U.S. history. And some of these whistleblowers or leakers, I don't know who they are, but a lot of them could have been irresponsible with information. It could have been a national security threat. But I know for a fact a lot of them were just exposing corruption within our own government, which he promised to protect. And then he did the exact opposite. And then he tried to use the Espionage Act to fully prosecute Edward Snowden and discredit what he exposed, keep the media from reporting on it. And that's why a lot of people don't know who Edward Snowden is. You can thank Obama for that, because he wanted to keep that tight grip on collecting information from the U.S. people. And if you look at the people that we're spying on, we justify this through like terrorism, and we use the FISA court to get approved to spy on people to prevent terrorism. And we collect data from people from literally every country, almost every country. But the people that we collect the most data from are people within the U.S., which is an extreme invasion of privacy. I know a lot of people would say, oh, I have nothing to hide. They can spy on me all they want. To me, that's a very ignorant way to think. That's a very stupid way to think. And the U.S. government is violating our privacy. So this happened under Obama. He promised to protect whistleblowers and then had the biggest whistleblower in all of history expose one of the most corrupt things the U.S. has ever done. And how he treated that is one of the biggest reasons that I disliked Obama and still to this day dislike him. And then Trump carried that on. And Trump even went as far to say, like, if this were back in the day, we would like hang someone who was like this big of a traitor. And it's not just Trump. Republicans at that same time were ready to put Snowden's head on a platter and bury what he exposed so that they can continue the mass collection of data of U.S. citizens through these illegal programs and abuse of the FISA court. So I want to add, and this is one thing that like I've seen a difference after I left the party, is I am able to easily see flaws in both sides, and I'm also now able to see good in both sides. Like, I have a long list of things that I think Obama, what he did was good and what he did was bad. And the same thing with Trump, things he did that was good as a president and things that he's done that were bad as a president. But if you subscribe to a political party, you cannot see that way. You're blinded by your biasness. And in my personal opinion, if you regurgitate the same stuff and no matter what, your party is right and the other one's wrong, to me, honestly, that comes off as if someone is brainwashed. And I'm not trying to be mean. I think you should have the right to be a part of whatever political party you want to. But for someone who thinks like I think, and I'm not saying that I'm like special, because a lot of people feel this way, and a lot of people who are what I would consider brainwashed Democrats or Republicans are probably a lot smarter than I am. Like, a lot of people in the government probably way smarter than I am, and they've been Democrats and Republicans 30, 40, 50 plus years. So I'm not saying, it's not a thing about intelligence. I'm just saying that that's what it's opened my eyes to. I'm able to think things, and I think more rationally. And I know in some people's mind it might be like a bad thing. Like, you can't pick a side, or people might think you're just trying too hard to please both sides or find common ground with both sides. But I mean, honestly, how my brain is wired, I'm like way more of a pessimistic person than I am an optimistic person. So I do more research about how flawed each party is. And so for me, that kind of just puts me in a position to where it's like I have way less common ground with people, because if you're a Republican or a Democrat, like, I know more flaws about your party than I know good things about your party, and that's just how I am. That is why I left the Republican Party, and realistically, I will probably never subscribe to a political party unless if there's a massive change. And from what I see, not so much in the government, but socially, and just with like civilians and how like people around us, like Republicans are becoming more militant and Democrats are becoming more militant, and that makes me want even want nothing to do with him even more. So yeah, if you ask someone who's like a Republican, I'm probably too left-leaning for them, and if you ask a liberal, like, I'm a white privileged Nazi. But no, in all seriousness, I hope you guys did enjoy this. I hope it was actually thought-provoking. And yeah, that's why I left the Republican Party, and I am no longer a part of it. So hashtag walk away.